it's amazing when you ask for help, how people reach out and how people lend a hand. And I was talking to somebody today that they said that they were ashamed, right? I remember being ashamed, like, people are going to think the worst of me. I'm thinking that now I look back now, I'm like, well, they thought the worst of me. They're thinking the best of me now once we get that recovery under our belts, and that's kind of how I look at it today.
Hello, I am B. Reeves with New Waters Recovery in Raleigh, North Carolina. Welcome to our weekly podcast, Finding New Waters. Our goal in creating Finding New Waters is to provide a resource for families to help navigate the complexities of supporting a loved one struggling with substance use or mental health. When we find ourselves in crisis due to one of these issues, most people have no idea where to turn. We hope to shed some light onto what is often the darkest hour for many families. Thank you. All right, welcome to another episode of Finding New Waters. I'm sitting here with our CEO at New Waters, Justin McClendon, and our special guest today is Ed Chionchio, who is with Brite Life Recovery, and he is talking to us virtually from Charleston, South Carolina. Welcome, Ed.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Looking forward to sharing some experience, strength, and hopes, and some of the adventures that recovery brought me on your show, along with the traveling and the adventures in between too of everything. So,
well, thank you so much for being here, and just start by telling us a little bit about what you do, what Brite Life does, and then we will kind of go from there.
So Brite Life Recovery is, we have two locations, one in South Carolina, and we have another one in Hanover, Pennsylvania. And we're soon to be opening our third location right outside of Albany, just south of Albany, in New York. And that should be coming up within the next couple months. So we're a residential, detox and residential program, 30-day program. We're kind of small, kind of just mom and pop type feel with some of the growth. Some of the, some companies that are growing today or 100 beds. We're not that. We keep everything small in each facility and kind of homegrown type atmosphere. So male, female, 18 and older, dual diagnosis. If there's, if you have any questions or whatever, britelife.com. That's BRITE life.com. And you can get a hold of me or anybody on the team. Would be more than happy to help if you have any questions about what we do. And that's kind of us in a nutshell. So
awesome. Thank you so much. And so you're coming to us from Charleston. And one of the first things I noticed when you popped on the screen is that you have your own gear. You got your own mic. And I knew this about you. And part of the reason we wanted to have you on is you have been doing a podcast for 7 years, I think you said.
Yep. Yeah. 7 years.
Tell us about that.
Yeah. Sure. Friends in Recovery podcast started back, I think it was 2018, whatever it is, about 7 years ago. A friend of mine who referred me at the time, a lot of cops. He liked to smoke cigars because I'm in business development piece of everything. And I forgot to tell you guys that, but, so he came up to me one day and, we smoke cigars. Like he likes to smoke cigars, and in business development, you kind of do what they like to do. And I like to smoke cigars, and Mike and I, he's called the Podfather on our podcast and some older shows, but Mike and I, smoke cigars. And one day I go in there, he's like, "You want to do a podcast?" I'm like, "What the hell's a podcast?" I'm like, I didn't even know what a podcast was. And he goes, "Yeah, they have it here." I'm like, "Mike, we're at a cigar bar. We're at a cigar lounge in Salem, New Hampshire." Two guys, a shout out to two guys. They're great guys up there. But I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Let's go upstairs." I'm like, "Are you going to like shoot me or something once we go upstairs? Because I pissed you off somehow." He goes, "No, there's a podcast studio up here." I'm like, "You're kidding me, right?" So we walk up these steps. I didn't even know the door was there. I didn't even know there was an upstairs. Years I've been going to the cigar lounge with Mike and smoking a cigar and kind of shooting the shit. Oh, can I curse on? I know we can curse on my show, but I don't know if I can curse on it. I'll keep it down though. I'm from Jersey, so Jersey, we have to be careful, and just step on my toes if we need to. Anyway, so we go upstairs and there's this gorgeous podcast studio, right? And I'm like, "Mike, I don't know anything about podcast. I don't even know what I would say in a podcast." He goes, "Well, let's think about it." So I'm looking at it, and it looks like ESPN. If you go to Friends in Recovery podcast, you could see some of the older shows. And we're in this gorgeous studio. I mean, just we have a desk, we have different camera angles, because that's what I was just saying about you guys earlier, and it switched over to you, Justin.
Yeah.
We had different camera angles, everything. We had a producer, you name it, we had it, and we did it for about 2 years there, and then COVID hit, and we had to kind of tame it down into our homes, and we kept it going, and
That's cool.
we have probably over 500 shows now. Our biggest accomplishment on Friends in Recovery podcast is I took a commitment to do 1 year of the steps, right? Of the AA steps. I know,
cool.
it's a recovery podcast. So every month, January 1st, did every week. It's a weekly podcast. Every week we talked about step one. And then we had on the third week, we had a clinical view on it. And then the fourth week, we would talk about the tradition, what the first tradition, step two, step three as a year. So 1 year it took us to get through every step. It was tough, man, but I learned a lot about myself, learned a lot about my recovery. My recovery grew immensely because of it. I had to study for it. I had to, really show up. I couldn't just talk about step one, step two. We really had to go into it. And then the traditions for AA, and this is AA. I know, this is specifically for AA. And it just I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about my co-hosts that were on with me, and we committed to it and we did it. And it was a long grinding year, but out of those hard times, not hard times, but out of those struggles and digging deep, became a new man outside of that year. So that
That's
was
awesome.
2 years ago, if you guys want to look back on those shows. So
Yeah.
I'd love to.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
yeah. So that's kind of what Friends in Recovery does. That's a nonprofit. We do Zoom meetings 2 times a day, 7 days a week. You can find us. Our website is friendsinrecoverycommunity.org, and all the meetings are on there
That's
if you want
great.
to attend the meetings. So yeah, and that's just giving back. My wife and I do that. We're the co-founders of that. We have a board that runs it, and it's just it's a passion project that's that's there for us, that we help people with. So
That's great. That's really good.
That's really cool.
yeah.
And we,
You said-
we love your
Yeah.
wife, Stacy. You go ahead.
Well, you
I
said
know you guys do. Yes, she's great. I love my wife, Stacy too. So
That's good. You said over 500 episodes. That's amazing, man.
I'm thinking somewhere around there. We had to take a couple episodes off, and then we put them back on, and so I
Okay.
think it's I would say between 400 to 500 episodes.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's
Yeah.
very cool.
Yeah. It's a lot. I was traveling up to Massachusetts almost on a weekly basis at one point to do the show, because it was we did it up in Massachusetts
wow.
for first couple of years. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's
but
amazing.
yeah, I love it. I love anything to give back, guys.
Yeah.
You guys know that, right? I mean, just give back whatever it is. It's if it's with work, if it's friends
Yeah.
recovery, if it's with just us shooting the shit, however I can help somebody, that's what my life is about.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate that. And I think, it's true, right? No matter where you are, that's what makes the world go round, right? We got to do for somebody
Mhm.
else. That's it.
Yeah. I couldn't imagine, getting up and not giving back every day, right?
Yeah.
Like what was freely given to me in AA. I'll just talk AA because that's what
Yeah,
I am.
go for it, man.
I'm 30 years sober. March 10th of 1994, I thought was the worst freaking day of my life. It was the best day of my life, right? When I look back, I always have people calling me. The first question that I ask them, anybody who calls me, if it's for treatment, whatever it is, I get help on Friends Recovery. How you doing today? Oh it sucks. I'm calling you, this sucks. I'm like, one day you're going to realize this is the best day of your life, not the worst day of your life, and March 10th of 1994 it still is the best day of my life, because completely changed. I'm not who I used to be. I used to have long hair, right? I used to have a beard. I don't know if everybody watches or if they listen on podcasts, but I have no hair right now, and I have a full head of hair. And so, but I was told to change everything, right? Change everything, change everything around. I was so desperate, guys, that I had to change it. I had to cut my fucking hair off. I had to change the way I was dressed. I had to my life was so upside down. Personally, obviously, and through my family, I didn't really have a job. My job was very, um, I guess, supportive of what was going on. I had a manager. I don't know if he was in recovery or not, but he supported what I was doing, and he was the only one that I told. But I'm sure everybody else knew in work. You know what I mean? And it wasn't in a recovery field. I didn't get into the recovery field until a couple years after. But you know, and these guys who call us, all of us here, we all get reached out to, and they don't know what we know, right? Until they experience it a little bit. And our recovery. I mean, I don't want to speak for you guys, but if you guys are doing this show like this, our recovery just took us to heights and places that we couldn't even imagine where we would be. If you, Justin, or B, if you guys said 30 years ago, write a script of your life, it would not come close to even what I have today. I'll be honest with you, right? I'd be shorting myself if I was to dictate and write a script of my life 30 years ago to what I have today.
That's
yeah,
amazing.
It's yeah.
Well,
so.
I have the opportunity to say this sometimes multiple times a day when somebody is calling in looking for help, whether it's, with New Waters or just, personal for my recovery community kind of thing. And, they're at the bottom, and this will be the best day of your life if you let it be,
Yeah.
And again, it goes back to that asking for help and then continuing to receive and accept the help.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's ongoing though, right? You guys know that, and it's ongoing. I have 30 years, but there's nothing stopping me from going out and giving it all away, except for my program, except for the people I surround myself with, coming on a show like this, doing my podcast weekly, talking to addicts and alcoholics, going to meetings, whatever that recovery meeting may be, surrounding myself with like-minded people. That's what I have to do. I just did a 29029 climb. I don't know if you guys know what that is, an Everest challenge.
Oh, okay.
So Mount Everest is 29,029 feet high. That's the elevation of Mount Everest. So a bunch of guys who I met through Friends in Recovery and a coaching program I was on at the beginning of COVID, who I never met before until 2 weeks ago. We put this challenge together that we flew up to Canada, into Toronto. We all got together for the first time. Now, they could have been axe murderers. I don't know. I didn't know them. I only knew them like this on the screen here. We're all in a house together, and we climbed the ski slope 4 times. It took us 3 days, over 30 hours, almost 35 miles, give or take, somewhere around there. And we pushed each other. There was 3 of us in recovery. There was 4 of us in recovery. The other 2 weren't. But we bonded together. We pushed, and it was a struggle. I mean, it was a struggle to climb. So we had to climb up this one ski area 42 times. We took the gondola down, but the climb, that all those, all that was in just going uphill, and we got the elevation of Mount Everest. And I didn't think I could do it.
That's
I'll be honest with you. It was a little, but that group of people pushed us through that. And that's what I mean by like-minded people. If you want to go use and drink, go hang around with those people. If you want to stay sober, hang around with the people who are staying sober. If it's however it is, I run marathons, ultra marathons. I do a lot of endurance stuff. I cold plunge every day. I know it's kind of everybody's, I do an hour meditation, an hour breathing every single morning. I journal, I read 10 pages, I study the Bible, all before 7 o'clock in the morning. I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I finish around 7 when the dogs have to be fed. And then I go out for a run or whatever my exercise is for that day. And I do that for me. And that's what my recovery taught me. If I don't take care of myself first, forget it. And you guys know this business, right? I mean, there's no taking care of yourself once that phone starts ringing, right? You have to help whoever you can, because once we get that window of opportunity to help somebody, it closes rather quickly. And not that I feel responsible, but my job is to help people get to where they need to be, and but I have to take care of me first. Now, stop me if you guys need to go any other direction. I'm sorry.
Go for it.
This is awesome.
I all that time in the morning that I do for myself, I don't get up with an alarm clock. I wake up at 4 o'clock, give or take, every morning,
Wow.
go downstairs. I drink a minimum 40 ounces of water before 7 o'clock in the morning because take care of my body. I feed my body the right way, vegetables, fruits. Sometimes I eat ice cream and crap and stuff like that, but I can feel it. I know my body now. Before when I was pumping all that cocaine and alcohol into my body, I knew nothing about my body. All I knew was I wanted more. I wanted the feeling like that more. It was taking me nowhere though, guys. I just got nowhere in my life, until I put that shit down and started doing all this stuff in life now. So
That's great.
So you clearly, waking up at 4, no alarm,
Mhm.
hour meditation, breathing exercises, readings, all before 7 a.m. What was your discipline like before March 10th, 1994?
Uh, well, nothing really. There was no discipline. There was no exercise. There's no, I shouldn't say that because my job, I came from a family of really hard workers. My dad owned his own business. My grandfather worked in a factory so all that stuff was kind of bred into me, and I knew how to take care of my family. That was the one thing that I knew how to take care of my family. If I didn't drink at work, I drank, before, after work, or, if I was off or whatever, but I didn't drink at work because I knew that was the most important thing for my family. At the age of 27, before I got sober, I had 3 kids already, and my wife was pregnant. And when everything went down and I knew I needed help, she put me into St. Clair's Hospital in Denville, New Jersey, March 10th of 1994. And that was it. There was no other contact after that with her. I didn't get to see my daughter, who now is 30 years old. Get a little emotional thinking about it. For about 4 or 5 months into my recovery. And it was tough. It was tough, but I pushed through all that hard stuff. I pushed through all that stuff, and I look back at it now. So I had 2 years of of uh uh, God, it was supervised visitation with all my kids, and I was angry at the beginning, and then I had to calm down and working through sponsors and the steps and praying and understanding what's going on in my life. I said, you know what? I have. I got to see him an hour a week. There's 168 hours in a week. I get to see my kids for 1 hour a week, which I can't control. 167 hours every week I got to work on myself. I got every week, just like clockwork, I got to see them for 1 hour. I got 167 hours to work on myself, and whatever that would look like, whether sleep, fitness, whatever it is. And that's when I kind of incorporated my running. Now, I didn't get into the breathing stuff until about 5 or 6 years ago, to cold plunges about 3 years ago. But all that, the meditation about 5 years ago, and it all started small when somebody suggested, why don't you meditate? I'm like, okay, I'll try it. And they said, try it for 3 minutes. I'm like, 3 minutes, that's it? 3 minutes? I run freaking marathons. I can meditate my fucking ass off, right? And so I sit there, I set the timer for 3 minutes. I'm like, I'm looking at it. It felt like 30 hours went by, right? And so I said, all right, let's dumb it down a little bit. Let's try a minute. Let's try 2 minutes. So I like to tell everybody, I also do life coaching too.
Okay.
I help a lot of people. I don't talk as much when I help people, but this is a podcast dream. I love when somebody comes on my podcast and just goes, right? And I just direct them a little bit. So
We love it.
anyways, so everything big starts small, right? That's what I tell everybody in my coaching. Everything big starts small. Don't try to kill yourself. You're not going to have 30 years of recovery the day you walk out of rehab, right? You're going to have just that moment. And same thing with my breathing exercises and I'm up to about 5.5 minutes in 39-degree water. Again, I had to build up to it. I couldn't sit in the tub for 30 seconds, let alone 5.5 minutes now, in the tub. Running, I'm gonna, hopefully everything goes well, and I'm feeling good. At the end of the year, I'm gonna run the Charleston 100. It's a 100-mile race at the end of this year.
Wow. Damn.
But I didn't start running 100 miles, right? I didn't start running 100 miles. So,
That's
I started
amazing.
walking around the block. And that was it. That's what I got into recovery. My wife kicked me out. I go live with my grandmother. My uncle lived next door. And he goes, "You want to go walk around the block?" I'm like, "I can't walk around the block. Are you out of your mind? I just got out of freaking rehab. Like, you want me to walk around the block?" And sure as shit, we walked around the block. It was a short walk. And then we kept doing it. Next thing we know, we're registering for a 5K. And way back when, guys, you guys are a little bit younger, we didn't have that thing you guys call the internet or these phone things. So to find out what a 5K was, you had to go to the library, or you had to ask somebody who knew what that was, or or whatever. So finally found out a 5K is 3.1 miles. And it's I'm like, I'm never gonna be able to run that. But then I ended up getting into at my work, I ended up becoming the wellness coordinator there, and just keep, like, all these things, all these good things kept coming into my lap. They didn't come into my lap when I was using. When I was with the drug dealer trying to buy all that cocaine, he never gave me extra coke. He never, said, "Oh, here's a beer." He never said, "Good job." Nothing. He took the money and got out, right? And that was it. There was nothing good about my using. Now, to have good times, yes, absolutely. I mean, I can't lie.
Yeah.
But the outcome of everything before March 10th of 1994, there was no good outcome. It's, it's August 2024. This show would have to go on for months if you wanted me to list all the great outcomes that I've had in the last 30 years. It was just nonstop.
That's amazing.
I couldn't list them all,
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So 100, I mean, that just, really stood out to me. 100-mile race. I mean, my God, man, that's a lot of miles. Do you run this continuously, or do you take breaks? What happens there?
So there is a time set, right?
Okay.
A limit that there's, I forgot what it is, but I think it's 42. Whatever it is, you have to do that in, or you get a did not finish.
Okay. Gotcha.
DNF, which is okay, but it's not about finishing, it's about the journey, right?
Sure.
So if I don't finish this race, or if I didn't climb Mount Everest, if I didn't get the elevation, it's the journey that I'm on, right? I don't sometimes I go out running, I run every day between 5 to 8 miles. And then I take Sundays and Mondays off, and Saturdays is my long runs. And I'll run anywhere between 10 to 20 miles on Saturday, depending on how I feel or what we're doing or whatever the case may be. And I just go, I just go at whatever pace it is. I don't need to impress anybody. Just like my recovery, I do it for me, right? And that's all that matters, and it is what it is. March 10th of this year was a Sunday, and I got up that morning. I'm like, I'm running 30 miles today. So I went out here to the Greenway here in Charleston. It's 8 miles out, 8 miles back, and I figured out the 30 miles, and I ran 30 miles to celebrate my 30 years of recovery.
That's great.
If we just like, I think our minds stop us from doing a lot of things, right? A lot of things. I mean, if I was to say I can't do it, or I shouldn't do it, or that stinking thinking in my head, you can't stop drinking, you can't stop doing cocaine, you can't stop blah blah blah. It's that mindset, and I lived in it, and the drugs and alcohol kept me down in it until I met somebody like my sponsor. My sponsor, just to let you know, guys, I had my same sponsor for the last 26 years now.
Oh, wow.
And him and I used together previously. And I always said, when I grow up, I want to be just like Andy. He had the cocaine, he had the cool cars. He was a vice president of where I was working. He had the women around him. He was married. He had fancy suits. He had tickets to the Yankees, season tickets to the Yankees and Mets games, because I lived in Jersey at the time. And I was like, one day when I grow up, I want to be just like Andy. Well, be careful what you ask for. You just might get it. Andy walked into a meeting a couple years after I got fired. I probably didn't have to tell you that, but I got fired from that company. And I looked at him like, Andy V? He goes, Eddie C? I said, Andy, what are you doing here? It was in an AA meeting. Literally, he walked in, and the AA meeting is going on, and this conversation goes back and forth. I said, what are you doing here? He goes, Eddie, if you don't know what I'm doing here, you better figure out what you're doing here. I was like, that's my sponsor. And ever since that day, he walked into the 12:15 AA meeting in Parsippany, New Jersey. He's been my sponsor. And he's just an amazing man. I think sponsors are really important. Mentors, whatever you want to call it, if you're
Mhm.
not in AA or an A program, mentors are really good. Like I was saying at the beginning of the podcast, I surround myself with like-minded people who are gonna pull me up, not drop me down. Because there's plenty of people out there are negative, and I can get negative also, right? And I have to make sure that I am not in that negative space, right? And that's why I do my breath work. That's why I do the hardest thing in the world every morning is to jump in a 39-degree bathtub for 5 minutes. Anything after that, guys, is cakewalk, right? Anything that comes up is cakewalk. And that's how I look at it. Let me do the hard things first
Mhm.
and move through whatever I can move through. I also have it. I don't know if you can see it, but I'll just tilt my camera. There's a calendar there. That's all my personal stuff that I do. I'm constantly doing challenges and anything to further my physical, my mental, my recovery well-being. And that's a year of just my personal stuff that doesn't count for work, that doesn't count for anything.
Mhm.
I'm going on a 100-mile kayak trip in 2 weeks down to Delaware and New Jersey
Oh,
with a
wow.
bunch of people from Friends in Recovery. We're I'm 58 years old. I don't got too much time left, right? So I'm gonna get it all in,
That's awesome.
including my family, including my recovery, including everything. I have to be very well balanced. And you guys know we can get deep into family, deep into work,
Mhm.
deep into all this, and we can forget about ourselves. So when do I get to run a 100-mile race? I mean, not too many people could say that, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to, these are the things I want to climb Mount Everest, which I did. I want to do all this stuff. But if it wasn't for the like-minded people that were around me, I wouldn't be able to do this, guys. Just
Mhm.
wouldn't. I just have to put those people strategically into my life, just like I did in my recovery. I learned that early on in my recovery. If I want to grow, I got to put those people in my life.
Yeah.
When you got sober, how long did it take you to start getting really after it in terms of this self-care and marathons and ice baths and all that? I mean, what was that process like?
So, had to be, I don't know, maybe 6 months, about 6 months to a year, because I knew something was missing in my life, right? I was 28 years old. I knew something was missing. And, again, my uncle, he lived next door. He was very active. He still is. He's 10 years older than me. And he runs faster than me all the time. And I'm always trying to catch up to him. I'm like 10 years old, 10 years older, and he's running faster than me. But he it was the one who inspired me to do all this. So it was probably about 6 months in. And again, everything big starts small, walking around the block, and
Mhm.
and the
Oh, yeah.
cold baths and all that stuff came a little bit later. It's a fad now, and I've heard
Mhm.
of it. I heard it right before really started kicking off, and I'm like, oh, let me try this. But I bought a professional ice bath now, and all this the Wim Hof breathing. One
Wow.
of those guys in Canada who I climbed the elevation of Mount Everest with is a breath coach. So he instructs me on breath work. Quick funny story. I did about a week before the climb, which was about 2 weeks ago. So about 3 weeks ago, I did I think it was a 15-mile run. And it was hot out, and then we have a boat, so we were on a boat both days, Saturday and Sunday. And then I woke up Monday feeling like crap. I knew I was dehydrated, so my wife took me. I said, just take me to the emergency room. I know they'll give me some IVs and I'll be back on track. Well, next thing I know, they're admitting me to the hospital for heart issues. I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm like, I have a week to go to climb this, do this climb, heart issues. I said, I work out, I eat healthy. I'm like, of course, my mind goes right to the dark side, right? Like,
Mm.
like I'm gonna die. I'm not gonna make the climb. Blah 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 blah. I get in the ambulance, and the ambulance driver goes, "I don't know why you're going to the hospital." He goes, "Your blood pressure's perfect. Your heart rate's perfect." I said, "I don't know either." So I get to the hospital, and they explained to me that there's some enzyme in your heart that's in your muscle, and runners it extrude a lot of this, this enzyme, and it could look like the one in your heart. It's just whatever it was, and the doctor wasn't he didn't want to take precautions. He wanted to take precautions and just in case.
Mhm.
And so I had to spend the night because they couldn't get me into the stress test, which that's another story. And so they warned the nurses that I was a runner, that my heart rate would start dropping, right? And it does. My resting heart rate's probably in the low 40s. And and like, I swear to God, guys, every 15 minutes they would come in and wake me up and see if I was alive. I'm like, guys, my heart rate's low.
Mhm.
So I don't care where I'm at. I do not miss my morning routine. So I started doing my breath work, and it's you have to hold your breath. So you take 50 deep breaths in and you'll hold it for as long as you can. My record personally for holding my breath in my breath holds is 3 minutes and 3 seconds. I was able to hold so I average about 2 minutes of breath hold 15 times, in that kind of that breath hold. But my personal record is 3 minutes and 3 seconds. But they came in, they're like, "What is going on?" I'm like, "Why? What's wrong?" She's like, "Your heart rate dropped down to 32 beats per minute." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm doing my breath exercises." And so if I was an unhealthy, overweight 58-year-old, I'd probably be taken in for heart surgery, right? But at that point, they were like, "All right, well, have at it, dude." I'm like, "All right." I'm
Wow.
like,
Hmm.
so, again, taking care of myself. Like,
Yeah.
you guys, here's the thing. I can't even start like this podcast. I can't get the beginning of this podcast over again, right? Not
Mm.
that I would want it over, but I don't have the luxury of sitting back waiting to take care of myself, waiting to maybe be sober, waiting to maybe have a good life. I have to do that right now, right this very moment. I cannot have the luxury of thinking that I can wait till tomorrow. I always say, there's another kind of saying. What I always say is remember tomorrow. Like, when I wake up tomorrow, did I do everything I needed? Was I kind? Was I a good dad? Was I a good husband? Was I a good leader? Was I a good podcast host? Did I talk too much? I don't know, right? And do I make the adjustments? Yes, I do, because I'm a human being on top of all that, right? I falter every once in a while. I fail. I get upset. Um, but I try not to. That's where the meditation and the breath work really comes in to stop me from getting angry. I don't get angry anymore, guys. There's no time in life to get angry. I know you guys are a lot
Mm.
younger than me, but if there's anything, anybody listens to this, if you're on the fence about getting sober or staying sober, or if you are sober and you've been in this for a long time and you have some anger issues, please work on them, because that's just as destructive as everything
Mm.
else, because we only get one life to live. We have this one vessel called our body that we can't get spare parts for it. Probably now you could, but takes a lot. But we only get one time around with this, right? And I want to make the best. I'm not on TV. I'm not, famous. I'm not none of that. But I want to just make sure when I pass on, that my family knows that let's maybe take just somewhat of the path dad took, or dad led us, great example of how we should live our lives. And my daughter, I'm not on Facebook a lot, but I had to post this, on the thing. And my daughter's 30, this was the one who wasn't able to see for about 6 months. And her first post on it, I said, we completed this challenge, blah, blah, blah. And she goes, "Dad, when I grow up, I want to be just like you."
Oh,
Man,
that's huge.
I want to be just like you too, Ed. I do.
No, you don't. But, and that said it all right there. Like, I'm making an example for my family. And if I'm doing that for my family, I must be doing it for a lot of other people
Mm.
too.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
kind of
Well, I asked
my
about
thoughts on
if you had any discipline before March 10th, 1994, because I know I had none until I got
Mhm.
sober, and then now sometimes I can take it too far where
Mhm.
instead of wearing it like a loose garment, I can completely stress out about, am I going to be able to meditate at the airport? When am I going to do this? When am I going to do these readings? And it's like, just relax, man. Like, you're going to do them.
Mhm.
and I can just, but I guess it's one way of saying that I don't know if this is a gift. I mean, it's definitely not, but take really the good things in life and make those stressful when that's just absolutely unnecessary.
Yeah. Yeah. And we do that to ourselves, right? We're like, okay, we have to get this in, we have to get that in. And, I travel a lot, and it's, you just find time to do it. Like, I don't stress if I have to be on a flight early and I can't do my 4 o'clock meditation and my breath work and all that. I mean, I find that, last week I was on the airplane doing my breath work the whole flight from the person next to me was probably thought I was some kind of weird freaking guy, but you know what? I'll never see that person again. Right. And that's life on life's terms. And then, if you're sitting next to me on an airplane, I'm doing some deep breathing exercises. That's what I'm doing, and, so I just get it in when I can. It's if I'm home, yes, or if I'm in a hotel, or if I'm somewhere stationary, I get it in. But like, you can't stress over it, because that's not what meditation's about. That's not what these readings are about. That's not, it's about just doing it when we can, and relaxing through it, and making that part of our life, right? If I'm meditating every day and I'm stressing out about meditating on an airplane, it ain't fucking working, right? It ain't working. I'm doing something wrong,
Right.
So
yeah, you're right. I needed to hear all this from you today. Yeah.
Great message. I mean, really, it's, take care of yourself. I mean, we say it, especially as professionals, all the time, right? We got to fill our cup up so that we can fill others.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm hearing ring loud and clear with what you're saying today, Ed, is that, make time. I mean, I've got my own stuff churning. I'm an early riser. I do nothing compared to what you do, but I get up early, 4:30 usually. I either go to the gym or I run. And so I could relate to the fact that, like, if I don't focus on getting up and like taking that time for me, because once the kids start waking up and the dogs, and I got to get ready and go to work and hopefully make an impact in other people's lives today, all that stuff that I needed to do for myself to keep myself centered is gonna take a backseat to everything else. So
absolutely,
I'm right there.
And don't put yourself down like that, Justin. You do.
I don't know. I feel like now I need to run 100 miles.
No, you don't know. But there's always somebody that's doing something more than us, right?
That's right.
There's people. I have a friend that ran and won a 200-mile race.
Wow.
Like 4 days, no sleep, just ran. I don't compare, like, as we say in the rooms, don't compare, just, identify. Right. And I identify with it, like, start where you're at. And it's great that I hear that you do that every morning. Right. And if you miss a morning, okay, it's okay. You just, life goes on, and
exactly.
I'm glad that you do it. I mean, it's, but here's the important part, right? Is I do that, and then I wake up and take care of my kids. I love hearing that. The dogs, so we have a bunch of dogs, but that's the most important, rewarding. Like, you wake up, those kids are running around, screaming and yelling. You want to pull your hair out. But you know what? When you get home, it's like, thank you, God. Thank you for all this chaos. Thank you for not giving me that life that I had, that I thought I could have.
That's right.
All the drugs, women, and alcohol that I wanted to keep doing until I died. Thank God for not. Thank God you didn't give me that life. Thank God you didn't let me write my own script for my life. That's my prayers. Thank God I have no control over what I do today. It's in your hands. Higher power, God, Buddha, Earth, whatever it is. I don't mean to offend anybody, but that's kind of how I look at it.
I'm with you, man. I'm with you. Thank God, indeed. Thank God.
Well, I think that's probably a good place to end it. Ed,
it's been great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. We let him cook.
I love it. I love it.
Thank you, guys.
And
I never get to be guests on podcasts, so I just run with it.
This
is beautiful.
This is great. So you said Brite Life and spelled it out BriteLife.com or recovery.
Yes.
Spell it out again. I don't want to do your job for you.
It's BriteLife.com.
Okay.
And all 3 facilities are on there. 800 numbers on there. Just if you're if you're looking for help, that's the place to go. And our admissions team will direct you to whatever, if it's New Waters, if it's us, if it's whatever it is, if you don't have money, if you have money, it doesn't matter. We're going to help everybody who comes, and you guys do the same. We're going to help whoever comes knocking on our door. And Justin, you said I have to be ready to help everybody the minute I get dressed and I have to be out the door at work. And I know you do the same too. So we're all giving back all the time.
That's right.
And I appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for having me on here.
One more time? What's the name of your podcast, and how do they find your Friends in Recovery and all that?
So Friends in Recovery podcast, you can find it on any of the podcast catchers. We're on YouTube also. And if you go to friendsinrecoverycommunity.org, podcasts are on there along with our meeting schedule on Zoom. You can just join a meeting. I think it's noontime and 7 p.m. Eastern time. We do 2 meetings a day. And, that's kind of how we do it. Facebook is Friends in Recovery Community if you're looking for us on Facebook.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ed. You've been amazing.